You're listening to the Elephant in the Room podcast, brought to you by Visory, where we talk about what's ahead in tech now and around the corner. Each week, we interview guests on the leading edge of technology advancements and delve into the intersection of where people and technology merge. Hi, everyone. I'm Carrie Pena, and this is The Elephant in the Room, brought to you by Adopt Technologies. I am so happy to welcome today Michelle Messina, an HR executive, strategic thought partner with 20 years of experience leading and implementing innovative talent initiatives. She's joining us today from Chicago. Michelle, thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Carrie, and thank you so much for having me.
We have a lot to talk about today. You work with a company now called Change Engine, and you work a lot in the space building strong company culture. First, start out by talking about what Change Engine is.
So Change Engine is an organization, it's a tech firm that meets at the intersection of HR and marketing and really focuses on employee communications. So when you think about it from the HR side, there's a lot of communications that we have to share with employees. And Change Engine creates templates that are customized to each organization that really helps to focus in on and align those messages and those communications to a company's brand, a company's culture and values. So it's not just a communication of whatnot, but it really connects the employees back to the organization and is impactful and meaningful.
You care a lot about bringing heart into this space. Yeah. A lot of times there's a misconception that HR is very kind of cold. And they're the people that if you have to go see HR, it's like this scary thing.
That's
You're trying to kind of break through some of that, right?
Yeah.
Talk to us about how the culture of the work has changed so that really the companies are trying to understand who the employees are, what they care about, and really that they care about them as human beings, not just employees.
That's right. I love this question, and I know we can talk about this, and we will for a bit here, Carrie. But to me, culture is how you behave with each other, right? It's just the behaviors. It's not necessarily what's written on a website or whatnot. So it really starts with how do you want to treat and interact with each other, and I think that we certainly. As humans, we need to think about how we interact with each other. As you said, the HR profession sometimes can be seen as the police or it's a scary place to be. But I think that we have an opportunity, and we're now focusing on this, where it's what I would call it a more humanistic approach, where we're looking at the employees as a whole person. And a lot of that was really kind of accelerated because of the pandemic, because of everything that everybody went through. How can we support employees as a whole person in their well-being and care for them, not just as employees, but as people? And so, you have to balance that, obviously, with being in a business and there are those responsibilities and requirements, but also get to know the employees and what do they need from us. And, and there's been so much discussion about, the Great Resignation. And even though I would say, with the economic environment where there's been some layoffs, but there's still a tight talent market. And so, from an engagement and retention standpoint, it behooves us as organizations to really focus and say, how can we support you, employees, as a whole person?
What do you think people are looking for when they engage and look for a job?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's a couple things. One is, that they can make a positive impact and that they themselves can grow and develop. Everyone wants to be successful. Everyone wants to grow and develop. So how is that future employer going to support that individual in those desires.
I read an article that you penned in October of 2022, and the first line of the article said, "The world of work is evolving." And you talked in this article about behavioral assessments, and I found this really interesting. You said, you delved into how individual learners respond to different situations, and you talked about allowing self-learners to reflect, and that in that empowerment, you're building a stronger workforce.
Right. I think it goes along with what I said before, which is, people want to just continue to grow and develop. So, you couple that with these behavioral assessments when you're thinking about making that right fit on both sides, both on the future employee side as well as the employer side. And, and you find that right connection, and you give those opportunities, for individuals to continue to grow and to continue to learn. I think that, I'm a lifelong learner, and I will be the first one to say I don't have all the answers, and I'm okay with that, right? But I always want to learn and develop and challenge myself. And so, I think it's so important to be able to give people those opportunities to continue to have, not only create the self-awareness, but also to learn from that and to continue to develop as individuals. Because that's what we do over our lifetime, right? As humans, we love to we just continue our journey. And why not do that and support that within the workspace too?
And, that we all raise each other up, that our journey continues to evolve, right? Like, we're not stuck in one place, staying here, doing the same thing day after day. It's changed from when our parents were growing up. It has changed. And to that end, I wanted to talk a little bit, what I love about this podcast, and this is the first episode of season 2. We've interviewed so many tech superstars and leaders in the space of a diverse nature. And one of the things that's really important to me in these interviews is to talk about your background and how that informs your work in the space today. And you certainly have an interesting upbringing as coming from a family of immigrants. Talk a little bit about your background.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Carrie. It's obviously core to who I am. So my parents immigrated from the Philippines, and I am first generation. And, growing up, having one foot in the American culture, right, and one foot in the Filipino culture, I didn't really recognize it at the time growing up, but obviously it informed and created who I am to have this dual lens. And even more, having had the opportunity to study abroad in Germany, and since college, being able to travel to many countries, that interest and that love and curiosity of learning about different cultures and people, that has also informed me. It's who I am at my core. And, I feel like, having those diverse lens and those diverse experiences, I bring that to everything that I do, certainly within the working world, and have an appreciation and an empathy for people that are coming from different environments and different perspectives, because I think it makes all of our experiences that much richer.
Mm. And what about, being a woman in the space and working in the tech world? Has that been challenging at times?
I will say that, historically, the HR profession has been more female dominated. You still find that within the tech industry as well. But one thing that I really enjoyed is that, there is this community that, I don't know if just automatically gets built, but other female leaders within tech tend to gravitate towards each other, and particularly other female HR leaders within tech here in Chicago, where I am, have really built a strong community. I think because of our like backgrounds of being female and being in a male-dominated industry, and also being within HR. So it's huge to create and find and create those communities of support. And something that I've done is, because I've been fortunate to be connected and part of these communities, is also to pay that forward in terms of, working with emerging female leaders, in terms of sharing my leadership best practices with them. How do they build their own communities as they're kind of growing in their careers within tech? But it certainly has its challenging moments, but like I said, I've been fortunate to have found some really strong communities of support.
What do you think has helped you the most? You have an incredible resume and you've obviously done a great job with your career trajectory. What do you think has been sort of your special sauce or your superpower?
Oh, superpower. I think this sounds pretty simple, but it's building relationships. I've been able to build relationships at all levels, whether it's at the executive level, all the way down to individual contributors across organizations. In fact, that's something that I do, is that, I when I'm in a role, even if, I want to get to know the other employees across that, the HR department supports. So I'll schedule, skip level lunches just to get to know people. But reaching out and getting to know people as people, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about, Carrie, and that humanistic approach, because we're all people at the end of the day that have our own lives, and getting to know them at that personal level is important to me as an individual, but also helps me to better support them. So I would say that's something that I've tried to carry through, all of the different roles and experiences that I've had.
Relationship building, but on a true level.
That's right.
I think that has been something.
And being authentic, like I
yes.
said, showing that vulnerability, showing that I don't have all the answers, showing that, we can problem solve this together. It's just being authentic in yourself.
Yeah. So it's not just transactional.
That's right. Yeah.
Where do you think we're going next? So we're in this space where we're looking at each other on a more humanistic level, and there's a lot of talk and debate. And I just read an article the other day in one of the tech journals about, are people going to have to return to in-person? Are they going to stay remote? I mean, I know you don't have a crystal ball, but you're like real dialed in. So where do you think we're going next?
Yeah, there's debates everywhere, right? In terms of flexibility, remote working, hybrid, return to the office. First of all, there's no playbook, right? I think it has to be, there is no one size fits all. And each organization has to really kind of go back and align back to their mission and values and culture, and then let that inform whatever approach they want to take. If it's hybrid, if it's return to the office, full time, whatever. But I think that one of the things that, the pandemic gave us an opportunity is, by working remotely, is that notion of flexibility, and that employees' flexibility. They have a choice. And I think that's something that is here to stay, meaning that, employees want to have a choice in terms of how they define that flexibility. And I would couple that with, it is still important to have face-to-face interactions, right? Nothing beats being in a room sitting next to a person. However, I think that those interactions should be purposeful. So, whether it's a collaboration session or a brainstorming session or a meeting where we really need to be together side by side. If it's, I just want faces in the office, I don't know if that's personally, I don't think that's as effective, and that's not giving employees that flexibility and choice. But if there's a purpose for why we want to be together, then I think, most folks will be like, yes, that absolutely makes sense. I want to be there with each other. So, but, like you said, it's not a crystal ball. And I think different organizations are kind of going to have to experiment a bit, just like we had to experiment with, working from home when the pandemic started, So it's a little bit of a green space right now.
I love what you said there, though, because, I don't, now for me, I separate. There's times when I really love to be in person, right, but I also don't like wasting time.
Exactly.
So it's like, if I don't have to call everybody in, fine, guys, let's do a quick Google Meet and then we're done.
That's
everybody knows, and I respect everyone who works with me, and I know they're going to get the job done.
Well, that's exactly right, Carrie, because I think that it's not necessarily, like we said, FaceTime, but it's more the outcome that you're producing, right? And so sometimes that can be hard to measure in terms of productivity or employee productivity. So what's usually the measure is time. Are you 9 to 5 or whatnot? Are you in the office at these times? So if we can shift towards being more outcome driven, as you just said, then you can continue to provide that flexibility of choice to your employees and still have the business thrive.
What do you feel is the most impactful for you in your role at Change Engine? And also just you shared a bit of your life story. So there's a lot of respect now for the diversity in our work culture. What do you embrace the most about where we're at?
First of all, it's a journey. And I'm on the board of this wonderful free clinic here in Chicago. We literally just had this conversation about diversity. And what we all said was, it is a journey. There's never kind of an end point to, have you reached your diversity goals? So one, I appreciate that, that we all have this deeper awareness of the importance and the benefits of diversity, and the need for that. And I also think that, it's also comforting that we're all learning in this journey, right? So we talked about, back to this board meeting, about how there's discomfort if, what if I say something that doesn't resonate or was the wrong thing to say? And just being giving grace to others and yourself for, one, that you want to have the dialogue, that you want to be on this journey, and two, that it may be uncomfortable at times, but let's continue to do that because it's the right thing to do. I think where we are right now is so powerful, and it's exciting. It'll be exciting to see how we continue down this journey, but it's hard. But I appreciate that people are really being authentic and saying that, that we may not know, or we may make mistakes, and that's okay, because we all know that our intentions are good and coming from the right place, and that we want to continue to be on this journey together.
I feel like having this conversation with you is really encouraging. I like to hear all of these things, and I love to hear that folks in the corporate, I've worked in corporate media, and And personally, when I engage now, I do a lot of work in content creation in the healthcare space. And I'm seeing a lot of major healthcare CEOs come to me, and they're trying to engage on a lot more human level. And I feel like all of that combined with what you're saying, like that gives me a lot of encouragement about what's going on right now.
I mean, I try to be on the positive side as well, Kara. There's a reason why I've been in this profession for a while. I love it. And the opportunities that we do have to impact so many individuals positively. It's a lot of hard work, but you're absolutely right. The dialogues that we're having now are so much richer than we ever had 10, 15, 20 years ago. And that's progress. That's really good progress. Yes, we have a lot more progress to do, but we are on that journey and we're making good progress. So I totally agree with you. Like, it's great to hear that we're having these dialogues, and it's okay that we don't know, what the answers are completely, but we're figuring that out. We're figuring it out together.
Beautiful. Michelle, thank you so much for spending time with us today. And where can people find out more about Change Engine?
It's changeengine.com, and, check it out. It's a great tool. I'm really happy to be part of the organization.
We appreciate you, and thank you so much for all your work in this space. And thanks to everyone for watching and listening. This is The Elephant in the Room, brought to you by Adopt Technologies. Now we are going to talk about what we heard, and I'm so excited to chat with Kathy Delzell, the HR manager with Visory, the sponsor of this podcast. And Kathy, you are joining us from New Hampshire. Thank you so much for being here. What was your main takeaway after watching this show?
I was really impressed with Michelle, and it was a refreshing and validating view of how nowadays it's so important to build culture with your employees and looking at the employee as a whole person. It's no longer just about what's their work life. In order to really build and grow with your employees, you need to look at people as the whole person. And I loved her putting heart back in HR. That meant a lot to me.
I was going to say, as the HR manager, that is something that you've committed yourself to doing. And why is that important for you leading this charge for Visory?
It means a lot to me. From when I got into HR, it was from operations. And so it was never from the law side of it, or, the police side of it, as you say. It's always been about the people. And I just feel like communication and getting to know people and working with them is the most beneficial part of my job, and how I feel that you bring value to a company, more so than just, did they sign this form or did they follow this process?
What was your one moment that was kind of the aha moment from watching this interview?
Not so much an aha, but just a really validating of that everything really comes down to communication. I know that that's, their business and what they bring, and it's really helpful to have some businesses out there that help you do that and be consistent in communications, but that everything really comes down to that consistent communication to build the culture. And that, I think I loved when she said culture is how you behave with each other. Like that was the definition of culture that resonated with me.
Do you think that's something that you're really trying to continue to implement as Visory grows?
Yes, very much so. We're 4 companies that have come together. So finding that common culture and building on that we've actually did a culture statement so that we can all rally around that and find these common grounds, which comes down to everybody needs to be met where they need to be met. And that's our job, to meet them there and support people in however they need that support.
And we are all human beings. We aren't robots.
Right.
And
Exactly.
we need to find that connectivity.
Right.
Kathy, thank you so much for leading with heart. And thank you for a few minutes of your time to share with us what you heard. We really appreciate you.
Appreciate your time and for you doing this for us. I appreciate being able to learn from Michelle. It was a great podcast.
And thanks to all of you for watching and listening. Once again, this is Visory's Elephant in the Room podcast. I'm Carrie Pena.